Okay.
Julia, this is Bill. I just noticed that James was asking via chat whether he has authorization or whether he can share his screen. I figure
He
you're the
can. Yep,
okay,
he can.
great.
So welcome everyone to the seventh meeting of the Government Transition Advisory Committee's Voter and Candidate Education and Outreach Subcommittee. Today is Tuesday, May 28th, and we'll be here from 12 to 1:30. My name is Julia Meyer. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Engagement and Community Participation Manager for the transition. Our co-chair, Bill, is going to facilitate alone today. Jane had a personal conflict come up. Next slide, please. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over some meeting logistics. So this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, and a copy of the recording of the meeting will be posted on the transition website under past meetings and events. For today's meeting, we have closed captioning available. To access closed captioning, you can click on the CC button on the bottom right of your screen. For committee members, please take this moment to change your chat settings to everyone, so that folks watching can see the chat. And please remember that the meeting chat is part of the public meeting record. For community members listening in, we have the Zoom Q&A feature available. Folks can ask questions or put comments into the Q&A function. We may not always live answer questions, but we do read them, and they also become part of today's public meeting record. At today's meeting, we're not taking verbal public comment, but as a reminder, folks can give written public comment or verbal public comment at any time through the transition website by emailing us at transition@portlandoregon.gov or by calling 311. And if folks want to sign up to give verbal public comment to the full Government Transition Advisory Committee, they can sign up to do so at our next full meeting on June 11th. Next slide, please, and I will turn it over to Bill to introduce our agenda. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Julia. And we have a full meeting agenda. So as we see here, our agenda includes subcommittee business, staff updates from June to October, for our voter education plan, and then look forward to a good discussion of GTAC's role in voter education. And then James is going to describe for us the mock election platform. And then we'll ask for feedback about recent activities, including our visit to the Elections Division Center. And finally, we'll talk about next steps. And then, with permission granted, we'll adjourn the meeting. And as Julia mentioned, Jane is unable to join us today, but Jane will catch up with us soon. Our next step is we have a summary of our last meeting, which was way back in April 2. And hopefully you have had a chance to look at that, but query, do the meeting, any recommended revisions or changes in that, very descriptive summary. And if not, could I entertain a motion to approve that summary?
I'll move to approve it.
Well, thank you, Terry. And do we have a second?
I'm not sure I was there, but I'll second it.
Okay, Fred, very much appreciated. So maybe all those in favor, maybe I don't know that we need a roll call vote, just thumbs up if you approve the minutes. And as I'm scrolling through the chat, I think they're approved. So good. Excellent. So let us move, we can review our working agreements. And so here are our expectations, that in discussions, we challenge ideas rather than individuals and offer constructive suggestions. And we approach different opinions with curiosity and seek to understand. And we keep the needs and concerns of the local community and the larger region, Portland, Multnomah County, even Oregon, at the forefront of the work. And we can arrive on time and, to the best of our ability, be prepared. And please let us know in advance if you're unable to attend. And as needed, Jane and I will endeavor to incorporate tools for breaks or breathers. And we'll try to keep multitasking to a minimum and keep focus on the objectives of the meetings. Next slide, please. Just a few other items. We will honor decisions of the group, contribute to overall success of the group by participating in ways that best meet our needs. And we step up and step back in order to collectively work to ensure that every member is heard. And with conflict, we embrace it and work to find ways to give each other feedback and resolve and address conflicts. And we can use I statements. So thank you for the review of, for listening to the review of our working agreements. So we can go to the next slide. And now we have, opportunity for updates. And I think, Jennifer, you're looking forward to updating us on the city's voter education plan. So Jennifer, please.
Thank you, Bill. And it was great to see many of you last week at the Multnomah County Elections Office field trip. So I know we'll have a chance to debrief that experience later today. But good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, everyone. Jennifer Chang, she, her pronouns, with the transition team. And I'm here to share some updates related to our voter education plan along with James. And there's also several staff from the team who can add in and help respond to any questions. So I think next slide, I just wanted to start with a reminder of the city's voter education overall strategy and approach. I know Sophia had shared with GTAC subcommittee probably several months ago about the overall approach that we're taking, which is involving three main prongs of activities and approaches to educate voters about the changes. The first is a broad voter education efforts that are utilizing existing channels. And then the second is focused partnerships and outreach with to hard to reach voters through community organizations. So this is our grantee or sub-grantee opportunity and approach. And then finally, we have our candidate education sessions, and James will be sharing more about that. But we'll go through each of these areas and just share where we are now, which is right at the beginning of launching our voter education strategy plan at the beginning of June. And just also to remind that the city is the lead on the voter education plan for Portland, and we're doing this in strong partnership with several partners, including this the transition team and the city election office, and also our partners at Multnomah County Elections Division and our voter education contract partners. So that is Portland United for Change, their fiscal sponsor, United Way, and then two subcontracted partners, Democracy Rising and Hearts and Minds. And so with that, if we can move to the next slide, just go through where we are in each of these kind of prongs of our plan. So in starting with the broad education efforts, this describes a wide range of activities we're doing and have planned for to get education out through established government communication and outreach systems. And so one main part of this is an update to the city's website, where we have a Portland voter education webpage that has a lot of resources. So there are several new materials that will be available on our website starting next week. And that includes a fact sheet about voter education, an educational comic, and also a coloring page. And then we will also have, and we do currently have available on our website, a social media toolkit. So I will just drop in the link here, in the chat, the link to where the printed materials will be uploaded and available starting next week. And those are available for individuals, the public and community members to download and make copies of, and also just share widely. And then in addition to that, we have a paid media strategy that is launching next week. And so we have a variety of print, large and small print media partners that are going to be releasing ads specific to ranked choice voting and voter education. And we'll start seeing those ads at the beginning of June. So also next week. And that is our paid media strategy. And then we also have a mock election platform that is now embedded on the city's website. And James will talk more about this later. But I just also want to share the link to where that is located on the city website. So individuals can go now to this website and just see and practice, do some practice on the ranked vote platform and using that. So in addition to that, we have a RCV educational video that is in its final stages. I believe it will be finalized and ready and available by early next week as well. And then we will be launching early next month our summer tabling events, where we have staff members and also our summer interns who will be joining that in going to community events and tabling and providing the educational materials and kind of links to resources for community members through August. So we have at least 3, if not several more events, tabling events. And in addition to those, our teams are also coordinating closely with other city bureaus who are hosting and organizing outreach events, so that we're coordinating and getting materials to them about voter education, so that we can be utilizing their events as well to get the information out. Our summer intern program, which we're partnering with the auditor's office, is launching as well. There are 2 summer interns who have been selected through a very competitive process, and they'll be starting next Monday, and they'll be participating and supporting all of these events. They'll be at the summer tabling events and helping out with many other areas throughout the summer. And then finally, we have many of the presentations that you as GTAC members, subcommittee members, and broader in the GTAC who are out in community and doing presentations and getting that information out around voter ed. I'll pause there to see if there are any questions before going to the next section.
Yeah, thanks for inviting questions, Jennifer. Do we? Yes. Yeah, I was going to invite individuals to raise their hands, and Fred has. So Fred, please.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thanks, Jennifer. One thing I know from events out in the community in the summer when they all happen is that Multnomah County Health Division and others also do tabling. And if there's some way to coordinate with the county's pre-existing, scheduled tabling so that they can have voter education materials handy as well.
Thank you for
Yeah,
that
Leah
suggestion.
might be
Yeah,
able to
yeah,
coordinate that. Yeah. But
great.
that's just if the city, and that normally that's going to be BES or water, maybe Parks
Parks,
and
yeah,
Recreation.
right, yeah, yep, exactly, you get it.
Yeah, but the county has other objectives,
Yes,
obviously, in programs, and they table at other events. And so it's a good way to have more outreach and hopefully the county elections can coordinate with other county departments.
yeah, thank you for that suggestion. We'll definitely check in with Leah around that. I know we're coordinating also around outreach through libraries. And so that has been great too. But yeah, to flag the additional outreach events that they're hosting would be great. Yeah,
Excellent.
thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Jennifer? Jennifer, I could ask a couple. When you were earlier referring to the contracts for voter education outreach, have there been any issues that of which we should be aware?
Not issues at this time. I would, that's a great segue to my next slide. So if we could go to the next slide and Bill, maybe you'll have some follow-up questions after this, because I did want to update this the subcommittee about the hard to reach voter contract. So the grant opportunity opened at the beginning of March and it closed April 30th. We received a really large number of really excellent qualified applications. It is a very competitive and great field of applicants. And so the evaluation committee met in the month of May 2 different times to just review and deliberate and discuss around the applications. And last Thursday was their second meeting. The committee was able to reach a final decision around a list of organizations to invite for funding. And so there's 11 organizations or applicants that are invited for funding, and those notifications went out late last week. We're waiting to receive their confirmation of receiving those awards, hopefully by today, if not by tomorrow. And then after that time, we're drafting, we'll be able to release a summary of those grantees, in addition to the full list of applicants, both those that received awards or those that were not awarded funds. And so, and then the new grantees will begin their first or their main onboarding training this Saturday. It's a full day training, and Grace Ramsey will be in town facilitating that training. So we haven't had issues related to the evaluation process. It is, from Grace's, has led and facilitated that process. It has gone very smoothly. It was a very challenging process in the sense that there were just so many great applications, a limited amount of funding, $210,000 available through this grant opportunity. And so I think more to come very soon in the sense of being able to share that final that award announcement. Yes, Fred.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. Definitely looking forward to finding out who they are and what communities they're reaching, and I'm looking forward to that. This is $210,000 for 11 grants. There was an other, and then the broad education was through existing channels. So I don't believe that had a budget impact per se. Maybe in creating the video It's and
Right,
printed materials, the comic book, etc. But there was like another 300 some $1,000
right. Yes.
for hard to reach voter contact that's never been itemized
Mhm.
for the committee or GTAC, or as far as I can tell, on budget presentations from Shoshona or others. And I'm
Okay.
wondering how is that being spent? Is it being spent for hard to reach voters?
Yes.
And but not through grants, but then through what, Democracy Rising, Hearts and Minds, and People United for
Yeah.
Change, or what?
Yeah, that you have a great memory for the budget. Yeah, so the broad educational outreach funding budget, is around 200,000, right? And
Yeah.
that's, all the paid media and the materials. And then the contract itself is 675,000, of which 210 is the grantees. And so there's 300 of the contract that is subcontracted to Hearts and Minds, which is the communications sub partner, really focused on reaching hard to reach voters. So they have developed a campaign that's focusing on media and other areas to reach hard to reach voters. And I think that we can, I think maybe I don't know now, or if there's time in this meeting, we can, or maybe at a subsequent meeting, can share out, or as a follow-up to this meeting, share out the plans for that portion of the contract. Yeah.
That would be great. It would be nice to know how that's intended to coordinate with the grantees and their
Yes,
activity.
definitely. Yeah. And much of that
like,
is, yeah.
particularly in translations, maybe, or
So it is, they will develop some material for use by all the grantees. And then part of it, they've been reserving to wait until the grantees are identified, so they can plan that in consultation with them on what's most needed. The materials that will be available on the city website will be translated already. So we are translating the materials, the fact sheet, and the RCV video will be translated. The comic will be as well, but just English,
Right.
Spanish.
So that's not through Hearts and Minds.
Correct, but there may be, for example, some additional needs that arise or that will be useful for the grantees to reach their communities. And so that's where there'll be Hearts and Minds will be available to kind of coordinate with and support.
Okay.
Yeah.
They'll be held responsible and accountable for how they spend $300,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. I mean, we can share the budget and their plan as well.
Okay. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Jennifer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, James.
James.
Thank you. I just also wanted to clarify real quickly the $200,000 for the broad voter education. That's $200,000 from OMF and the transition team, but then part of the voter education plan also included another $150,000 from the auditor's office. That's also part of a voter education budget that's already been budgeted. So it's like $350,000 that have already been budgeted and we've discussed with you. And then also in the current budget proposal that the mayor's office has already signed off and is in TSCC right now, there's also some additional funds coming out of the auditor's office that obviously that budget hasn't been finalized and approved yet. But there's some budget set aside in that plan proposal that would add some additional media and some other things to the voter education plan for the broad reach. So that's something, once that is approved, we can have conversations about that and how that's spent coming out of the auditor's office. But just to add to what Jennifer had already covered.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Fred. Jennifer, if I could ask an additional question or two. On the preceding slide, you're describing a lot of active and good activities. query, do you feel are we on schedule? And then secondly, are there any issues or concerns that would be helpful for us and GTAC to be aware?
So we are primarily on schedule with each of these areas. There's a slight delay, I would say, in some of the translation of the fact sheet that we have planned, which will be kind of having, the fact sheet in English will be uploaded by next week. And then we are getting then the translations done in the following weeks. So we're moving as quickly as possible to get those uploaded, but it will probably be couple weeks delay until all the languages we receive back and then get them uploaded. I would say the RCV video was delayed by maybe a week or two. So, but we're still meeting our goal timeline of having these materials available by the launch of the start of our plan, which is next week, the beginning of June. I did want to mention there's several other things we're continuing to work on that will be our deliverables that will be completed later in the summer or early fall or mid-summer, including a citywide mailer, a ballot insert, and then also planning and scheduling for community town halls, which will be really focused around voter education and occurring in September and October. So planning is still occurring on additional items.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. And when these items are posted or made available, is feedback from GTAC helpful at that time? I mean, I'm guessing that might be the time for GTAC members to look at the materials and give feedback, or is it?
Well, the fact sheet, comic, and coloring page you have seen prior, and I think several members have provided feedback on. So when they're posted, they're finalized and now available and complete. There will be these other materials, including the mailer insert, and then some of our planning around the town halls, which will, I think, are good opportunities to receive subcommittee members review and feedback on as we're beginning and working on developing them. So
thank you, Jennifer. We would welcome the opportunity, and at least I do remember the fact sheet and the comic.
You've probably seen a couple versions of that. Yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, great. And then I'll pass it on to James now to update on the candidate. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, on this page, just kind of the role of GTAC and these community. I mean, we've been making community presentations. We've been broaching ranked choice voting. James has accompanied many of us on our events. He knows the ignorance that lays out there. And I'm wondering if, because we're continuing our community presentations, but there is a voter education plan to begin implementation in next month soon. Should all GTAC members get an orientation on the voter education program so that we can be more adept at and more providing more emphasis on ranked choice voting than some of the charter transition changes, if as called for in this. I mean, how are you going to involve us through our community presentations, or also tabling? I know that I've been volunteering to table. I'm sure the other GTAC members would be happy to table and save the city and county some overtime charges on weekends. So that's a thought as well. Thanks. Just involvement of GTAC further along Bill's lines of questions. Thanks.
Can y'all can hear me? Okay. June Reyes, Transition Engagement Coordinator. Thanks for the question, Fred. I think you were like one of the folks who were interested in the voter education GTAC workshop that unfortunately was not available. So I can make sure that you have the meeting recording for that to be able to brush up. And I also updated our transition presentation to be able to kind of cover the bite-sized information we had talked about in that training. So you should have that available. The other thing is, we'll send this out in an email, but I started adding tabling events into our outreach spreadsheet. So you can go ahead and sign up for those as well. There will always be someone there to be able to have things, you know, materials, et cetera, there. So you can always just expect to kind of show up and have somebody there with you. And as we get more opportunities to table with our partners, not only the county, but for 311, for example, we'll also put those on the outreach spreadsheet and make sure you have what you need to table.
Thanks, June. That's what happens when one misses a meeting.
Thank you, Fred, and thank you, June. Do we now move to James? And James, yes, candidate education.
Great, thank you, Bill. James Eccles, Elections Analyst, the City Auditor, and I'll talk about the third prong, candidate education. Just as a reminder, the intention behind this prong is that even though it is not direct voter education, we know and realize that we're going to have a ton of candidates this year, and that those candidates will have more FaceTime interaction and really training with voters than we would ever have the capacity to have without them. So we decided that we would have some emphasis beyond the typical candidate education, you know, the filing, campaign finance, and all that stuff. We'd have an extra emphasis on RCV, on the districts, on the sort of voter side of things, so that those candidates would be better prepared for talking directly to voters and answering those questions that we know they would have. So as you know, at the end of last year, we updated our candidate guide, make it a lot more comprehensive and have a lot of that RCV information in it. You all had an opportunity to see that and respond, and that a version of that went live back in January. We made some minor changes to that. So some updates and forms and some final process questions weren't really ready. And we've had a couple additions to the candidate process. So there will be a final version of the candidate guide that will be available on June 30th, May 30th, our first candidate learning session. So it'll just be available on our website and updated. It actually is up now, but will sort of officially be available. It's not a major change, so don't feel any sort of need to re-download something, but that is something that has been updated since then to just be more accurate and more current. And then the other part of that is the candidate learning session. So these are events. We held some of these in January. I know some GTAC members were able to attend or watch our online video, and this will be sort of an expansion of that. We'll have 3 sessions actually starting this week. The first session will be a virtual session that we plan to record and have available. It will sort of replace our old video. So we have all that information. We have a little bit of additional information, a few more speakers, some extra additions and updating the outdated stuff. But largely, if somebody attended the first one, we don't really expect they'll gain a ton out of this one, but obviously there's just additional time for questions. And then next week on Tuesday evening and Saturday, June 8th during the day, we'll have 2 in-person events. The first one, the evening Tuesday session, will be out at Rossi Farms. It was important for us to do something out in District 1, sort of be out in that East Portland area. Rossi Farms is sort of a great venue, so hopefully it'll be a good place for people to access. It's pretty far north, but as we know, these districts are pretty large, so not everything is going to be perfectly convenient for everybody, but we hope this makes it a little more convenient for people that live and work out on the east side. And then the Saturday, June 8th session will be at Portland Community College's Cascade campus. I wanted to say that right. They have several campuses. So that's a little more centrally located. Again, though, it's in District 2, so it was important for us to kind of get something in District 1 and District 2 in person. So try and be out in the districts and drive sort of turnout and participation in those districts. This event is a little bit more. We're going to have an hour of tabling sort of in the break in the middle, where we'll have actual tabling. We'll have some, a lot more opportunity to ask the experts questions, interact personally. A lot of the education material that Jennifer already spoke about will be available at this event. It'll be our sort of first almost practice of our voter education events, of sort of getting out there and interacting with people on the specific voter education material we've generated. And that'll be during the day on Saturday. We're also providing lunch. As before, I strongly welcome and encourage any GTAC members that want to attend. You're welcome to. I will put into chat a link to our registration page. And you're welcome to go there. It has information on the events. If time-wise, you're always welcome. It's convenient to attend the virtual session, but I do really encourage you to attend the live sessions just so that you get a chance to sort of see what candidates are asking, talk to people. And even if you're not a presenter, being there as a GTAC member can kind of give people another opportunity to interact with, people involved with the city and involved with our voter education process. So those are things that are happening next and we're excited about. And I'm happy to answer any questions. There's obviously just also the nuts and bolts of candidate filing, which opens on June 5th. So our office is getting ready for that. And we expect it'll be a very, very busy summer with all the candidates that are filing, but we're well prepared for that. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has on candidate education.
Yes, thank you, James. And do we have any questions or observations? James, if not now, we will. And we do have from Terry. So Terry?
Yeah, just quick question. How are registrations going for the upcoming things?
It's good. It's about what we expect for the virtual event, about what we had last time in January. Our registration so far for the live events is less than what we'd like, but those events are also happening next week, not this week. So we know that there's going to be some number of people that just haven't kind of made the decision. Candidates, like everyone else, tend to be procrastinators on registering for events. But the virtual event turnout looks like it'll be great, and that's going to be this week. With that in mind, we would love for you to share with your communities that link to the registration. Anybody candidate-wise, we've sent out a bunch of stuff. There will be some additional advertising going out this week to candidates to kind of let them know about the events. Candidates as an audience is not a massive pool of people. Even though we feel like there's a lot of people running in comparison to the number of people in Portland, there's only so many finite number of candidates. But we have opened this up to anybody that sort of wants to learn that level of depth and detail. So, if you want to share that link to registration with your community and with any candidates or any organizations that just kind of want a really deep dive on the candidate process and RCV and all that stuff, I highly encourage that because we'd like to drive those numbers. But so far, they're where they need to be for the virtual event, and we think that they will be where they need to be for the live events by next week.
Thank you, James. Fred.
Yeah, James, it seemed like at your first candidate training session, you had reported that there were quite a few campaign managers and the like. And it seems like anybody working on a candidate's campaign might benefit from a training session, especially if they're out trying to explain to potential voters what ranked choice voting means for their candidate. It'd be nice if they were providing accurate information.
Absolutely. Anybody that we think is going to talk to voters on behalf of a candidate or even just doing general nonpartisan get out the vote, we still would want those people. If you think this is a great deep dive into it that's open to everybody, it's harder to get this level of dive at a tabling event or a similar event. This is really where you get an opportunity to really ask questions, find out what's going on. Between the tabling and the Q&As, there's going to be really over 2 hours of opportunity for people to interact with the experts and ask them direct questions. And you're not going to get that anywhere else. So yeah, I think you're right, Fred. And I highly encourage people to take part in that if they think they're going to be talking to voters at all.
Thank you for the update, both Jennifer and James. Let's discuss now the role of GTAC. That will be the next slide. Oh, so, the city, we've just heard an update on, the city's voter education plan, and, GTAC is part of that. And if, we look at what we described, or what we have previously prepared with regard to our role, this could be a good time to review that and then invite some feedback. And James had some additional observations. But here in the work plan, we advise on the voter education strategy, which is what we've been doing in our subcommittee, and advise on the voter education budget. And we in GTAC have had some good discussions on budget, and we'll review the educational materials related to election methods and the form of government, which we have done and can continue to do. And we will share and utilize educational materials created by the Hard to Reach Voter Contract and the Auditor's Office. And I would add, as well as materials prepared by the county and city. And we will recommend approaches for candidate training. So again, thank you for the update on the candidate training. And we'll report feedback from the public about ranked choice voting, which we regularly do. And we'll advise on updates to the elections code. And can we move to the next slide, please? And here are some expectations of our subcommittee. And overall, as I think we discussed at the initiation of GTAC, spend about 12, 15 hours per month. And I've heard feedback that some individuals have spent far more. And it strikes me that's good, but should not be to exhaustion. So if one feels overextended and would appreciate assistance, please share. We're all good parts of GTAC, and we'll look forward to helping each other. But our activities, it includes, it doesn't mean all. You can allocate your time depending on your likes, and the dislikes. But attend the monthly GTAC meetings and the prep. That's good. Attend our voter education or our voter ed subcommittee meetings, and also provide voter education presentations, and we add tabling to that. And we also provide education and engagement opportunities in the community, and it takes some time to prep for that. Also, we can attend the community listening sessions on GTAC recommendations. And also, we can share engagement opportunities with our networks, neighborhood associations, different groups, social media, via social media, email. Now, if you add up all the hours for each of those items, that exceeds 12 to 15. So it's not the expectation you do that amount for each of these items, but this is the collection of items, which is a group. If we do, we can be very effective. Thank you. And let's look at the next. Or I think now, James, it's good to ask you if you had some additional comments on how GTAC can be effective in advising the city and also getting the word out on voter education.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I mainly just wanted to add in that our campaign launches in June, the first week of June, and that's really where you're going to start, hopefully, seeing a lot of these advertisements out there in the paid media. I think one of the things that's going to be really helpful is we've sort of created a plan with an intention that we're going to pull some levers after June before we get to our July and August paid media. And so we'll look at the analytics. We'll figure out, where did these ads on this radio station or this ads in the Oregonian, like what did they drive to the website and that content. So we'll look at the Google Analytics on our end, but we'd also just kind of like, if as you interact with them out in the public, or if you hear feedback on people, this is really where, we've had months and months and months, a year really, of people being like, what's the city doing? When are they going to start? Well, now it's starting. So this is where that outside public feedback is going to be helpful. And then that can help us adjust that. So Probably at the next voter education subcommittee in June, we can talk more about this, but we really are going to want to know what you thought about that first pass. And maybe it doesn't even, maybe you never see it and nobody you talk to ever hears about it. That we want to know too. So we know that maybe we need to do more. Maybe we're not doing enough if nobody's actually hearing about it. So those sorts of things I think are going to be specifically really helpful. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the budget proposal is waiting for approval right now. And in that budget, the auditor's office is going to add some more money into voter education. We're still having conversations about what that's going to look like, and we're partnering with the county to sort of figure out that paid media. But as we get to a more kind of detailed plan and specifics, that's also something that you all have, similar to, we talked to you about the plan for paid media months ago on the main voter education, coming out of OMF's budget. And now we'll kind of maybe want to get feedback from you about additional paid media in that way. So those are just a couple ways specifically that would be really helpful to us in the next month for you to keep an ear out and to ask your communities about their thoughts about what's going on.
Thank you, James. We'll be very attentive to giving feedback. Now, in the last few slides, we've listed various ways, to and expectations for our subcommittee and for GTAC. So now is a good time. If these strike you as good, are we missing something? Expecting too much? Any comments that any of us have? Fred?
A question about the certification of the voting system, the vote tabulation system. Tim was talking about Wood was talking about midsummer, and I was just wondering if there's any update from national or from the Oregon Secretary of State's office or the national certification agencies.
James?
Only to say that it is on track and on schedule, and we have no expectations that anything is going to go wrong there. We continue to work closely with the county to make sure that they have everything that they need from us. And other than that, it's pretty standard, and so it's going along as expected. But if there are specific concerns, we can always. I actually think Lee is on the call as an attendee, but we can absolutely ask the county to get on the agenda at a voter ed meeting if there are sort of specific questions. They're always the best ones to answer that, and they've been pretty happy to do that in the past. Right. So yeah, we can look at getting them on the agenda to answer it directly, but I expect zero problems with everything getting certified.
Let's hope. It's important. Yeah. Well, and it seems to me, recollection is correct, James, that coming up with a sample ballot that we can distribute is really kind of contingent on the county's approach to ballot printing and style be certified, be the one that so they're comparable instead of the one that we're using now or that you're using that's just 6 columns 1 through 6, etc. But it'd be looking a lot more like the actual ballot, so that people aren't surprised by getting an entirely different looking ranked choice voting ballot when their ballot shows up in October.
Well, and I just want to clarify, Fred, that those are connected but separate things. So they are working on finalizing the ballot information, but what we have is sort of an provided by the county version of the ballot that we can use for voter education. They won't have a final ballot till the typical deadline, and Leah can clarify what that is. I think actually what I'm seeing in chat is that she's available to jump on and provide an update. So hearing it directly from the county is always better than me trying to regurgitate the information they've shared with us. But just to be clear that those are sort of separate, that they are working on what the ballot will appear like, and that is obviously related to the certification of the system. But the certification of the system is a larger sort of
course
specific
but process. So we have a prototype now that you think is up to the job.
Yes, yeah. What we've shared was provided by the county as a this is going to look close enough that it is good for for education purposes. Everything is always should be shared with the understanding this is an educational tool and not whatever.
Yeah.
So what we have in our final one pager, which if it should be up on the website, in that as we discussed earlier, there's a version on there that people can sort of fill in as a sample ballot. We think that that'll do the job as an educational tool. And then once we have a sort of final version of the county, obviously we'll share that out so people can see it. And we expect that to be, sort of ready for like the mailer and things like that, but not ready yet. So and I'll let Leah answer any further.
Right. That seems like the mailer is very important, especially getting closer to actual ballots, that people have a better understanding. And the mailing going to each household is what we did with the state voters pamphlet. It went to every residential address in the state, so that people who are not registered to vote get an idea of, oh, this is before voter registration deadline. We can do it. Let's get involved. And here's what we're voting on if we register to vote. So
correct. And that
is important.
Correct. And that is what's happening with the mailer. It'll go to every household in Portland, not just to registered voters. It'll also be available as material to those that don't necessarily have a mailing address. We'll also make additional copies available so that everybody can kind of see the content, but that is absolutely the intention.
Good. And I do see that Leah's here. Yay.
Yes. Yes, Leah, glad you can join us.
Yeah, so I'm just here for a couple minutes, but Fred, to your questions, I've got answers, so I'm going to provide them. First, talking about the ballot. So yes, the one that was provided is not an exact replica of what you're going to see in November, but it is very close. We don't need to have the system certified in order to do the ballot design piece of it. So there's nothing that we're waiting for that. The main difference that voters are going to see are in the instructions that are provided on it. Some of the wording is going to be different. The layout is going to be almost exactly the same. So it's a great one to work from for a sample. With certification, what James said, we're still very much on track with it. We have dates in order now, which is very exciting to say. We're very confident. It's been through the national laboratories in terms of that testing phase is done. It's now moved on to state certification, and we've got a plan for how that's going to happen. I've been working really closely with the Secretary of State's office in addition to our voting system software vendor for it. And so have everything that we need to make sure that it's in place. No issues, nothing exciting to report there. Just waiting for like the final stamp of approval on it. But that's all I got. Thank you.
Well, Leah, thank you. And thanks for joining us. And we understand you're going to have to leave fairly soon also, but thanks for making the time. And with regard to our voter education expectations, I think perhaps I'll talk more with Julia in June. It strikes me that if we could put these in a single document along with, say, links to the community engagement site or the voter education or the candidate education or the future events, it would be an easy reference page that I could send out to our subcommittee or GTAC. But that's something for us to discuss after this meeting, an idea. But our next subject, or our meeting now, is the mock election platform. So James, I think this is something that you get to present to us or get to show.
Well, thank you, Bill. In case any of you have not heard my voice yet enough today, then I'm glad to jump in. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And then I will. So we talked about this a bit at the workshop, but unfortunately, unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties, so we sort of were in and out of this, and we didn't have enough time to really cover it. So I want to walk through a bit of it. the platform, how we're going to use it, let you kind of see the nuts and bolts of the platform itself, and then open it up to questions about both the platform and the way that we intend to use the platform, so that you can have an opportunity to interact with us on that. First of all, if you can see my screen, hopefully you should be seeing the dashboard for it. So this is when we log in, this is where the dashboard for all of our elections will exist. We don't have a limit, so we can create as many elections as we want. We don't, at this point in time, intend for GTAC to have their own separate license. One of the parts of our plan is that we're going to have a bunch of licenses available to share with partners. But the point of those licenses is really to kind of create their own elections. So we're giving the licenses to like sub-grantee organizations and things like that, so they can be trained on how to use it and then go off and do their own thing without, and kind of add to our capacity. We're not really expecting GTAC members to be creating a whole bunch of elections, but we do have an expectation that you use it and reference it in the presentations you're doing. And for that, we can sort of just use what we've already created, or if you have feedback, additional elections in our account, and then just you'll have access to that account to use the elections. So this is the dashboard. As you can see, there's a number of elections that have already been created. There's several different teams that we have going on this. So this is just sort of the team that Francisca and I have been working to create. As you can be made aware of, that our very first election is going to have to do with civic life, and that will be up. I think it's actually already embedded on our website, but that will be in partnership with Civic Life, and they will
I think we temporarily lost James.
All right. All right. Well, I lost audio there for a second, but hopefully you can hear me now.
Yeah. Your screen is not shared, James. I don't know whether you want to share or not.
Yeah, there we go.
Good. Well, and James, if you can hear me, at least on my screen, you are frozen.
Election that you probably have already seen and participated in, hopefully. But we'll go to the donut. So this is what people will see when they click on a vote link to come to this page. Now, I want to talk about, there are typically going to be 3 different ways that we use this platform. The first is going to be as a primary presentation tool, and I'll sort of walk through how I will do that. It's already part of my script for the candidate learning session that I will go through and sort of involve the audience in an actual participation of an election. So I'll cover that. That's sort of, if you really have the time, that's that larger sort of, we talked about the meal version at the workshop. You have a lot of time to work on it. You really want to show them the deep dive into ranked choice. So you're going to go through it as a live event. The second thing is when we're doing tabling, our intention is to have a laptop or a tablet set up at our table. We'll also have a QR code. All of these elections are mobile friendly, so people can interact with them on their phone. All they have to do is scan the QR code or go to a link from our website. And really, the tabling is a little different than a presentation. You've got a little more time to play. It's a little less, directed. We want people to come up to the table, be able to either engage on the laptop directly, or to be able to sort of see it with their phone and then access it further. When that happens, the intention is sort of let them play a little bit, kind of point them to the laptop or point them to the QR code, and then step back a little bit and let them know you're there to answer questions, but give them a minute to sort of do an election, see the results, play with the platform and see it. We found that helps a little better for them to sort of see the intuitive side of it first, and then they'll be able to reach the questions that they have. So then after giving them a minute, you'll step in, kind of say, how did that go? What do you think? Good, bad? What sort of problems did you have? So that's tabling. The third way is sort of as a supplemental tool. We absolutely don't think that this tool is always going to be the best use. One problem with the tool is that it sort of takes a lot of interaction. So if you're doing a presentation and you're the only speaker there, there's no one there to sort of help you with slides or with sort of helping you out with the platform, it can be very difficult to sort of talk through what you're doing and also click on the things and be accurate. It's not like clicking a slide forward and then talking about a slide. You really have to think intentionally about clicking on these and what it means and what's showing up on the screen. So unless you're going to have somebody there to sort of help you out, it's better to sort of either have the platform embedded into a presentation, in which case you're sort of referencing an election that has already existed, or you go through what Grace and Leah had already presented as a typical presentation on ranked choice voting, and then you just provide near the end saying, when you talk about other resources, you point them to an ongoing active election so that they can leave your presentation and then go to somewhere where they can sort of get that hands-on experience that they wanted. So that's sort of the three ways that we see being used. We think it'll be vital in all of those ways, but we want to recognize that it's not always going to be the exact perfect presentation in all means and methods. Great. So moving through, when we're covering this, I will sort of, and you'll see this if you attend one of the Canada Learning sessions, this I have it embedded into as part of my script, like I said. So when you do this, I recommend sort of first giving a bit of a primer. This is one thing that is exciting about this platform, is that the people are actually voting. They get to see their votes having an impact and see that playing out in real time. That also means that it's a lot less predictable than a slideshow. It means that you may go through an election where the person gets the majority of the votes, the candidate as it is gets the majority of the votes in the first round, and the election is literally one round and you're done. That's great when it happens. It's very simple and convenient. It doesn't lend itself well to explaining how someone is eliminated and how the votes are transferred. So with that in mind, I recommend sort of giving a primer first as part of your presentation if you're going to have this as a tool. First, talking about the 50% plus one, talking about that the first round of our ranked choice voting election looks very similar, if not the exact same as a normal election. We just tank the highest rankings. If we get there, we're done. Hey, great, look, that happened here. If it doesn't, this is what would have happened. So you need to be prepared to talk about what doesn't happen on the screen as much as you're talking about what does happen on the screen, just in case the specific example doesn't happen. So with that in mind, I would also, part of my presentation, I have the QR code come up on the screen, and I talk to people about what ranked choice voting is very briefly as an overview, and say, go to this QR code to participate in an election. Then I dive into some of the details, the primer that I was talking about. Then that takes a couple of minutes of time on my script. I then come back to the election, because the other thing about this being live is you got to let people, give them a chance to play with it. So either you got to provide it to them before the presentation. Maybe you're going to a neighborhood association that's very invested, and they have email newsletters that go out all the time, and maybe you can send out the vote in a newsletter beforehand. When we presented this the first time to GTAC, we provided you all a link to the vote beforehand. So you want to make sure, however you do it, you can't just show the election and then start going through it, because then everybody's still trying to vote and nobody is sort of paying attention to the votes as they're happening. So there just has to be some sort of a lead in there. Once you get to that, then you can walk through voting. Now, when I'm doing this as an actual presentation, I use what's on the panel. I first identify that, as we've said before, this is an educational tool. Ranked Vote as a platform is a great educational tool, but it is not exactly how your ballot will appear. And it doesn't count the votes exactly how our system will count the votes. So keep all of that in mind. But as an educational tool, it's going to help us answer a lot of your questions and get to the further questions that you have. So I will then go through sort of the things that we typically talk about. I will show them that, if you, and I'm going to actually go back and start a new election here. If you try to vote for two people at once, the system won't let you. And then I talk about, if you did this on a November ballot, that's what we call an overvote. And if that happens, neither one of these votes will be selected. So our educational tool doesn't let that happen, because those votes would not be counted on an actual ballot. I would then talk about how, even though you may love Voodoo Donuts, if you rank them 3 times, again, this platform is going to give you an error, because we can't count all of these votes. We would count your first vote for Voodoo Donuts, but none of these would count. So we want to highly encourage people, when we're educating them, to select other votes. And then the last thing is skipped rankings. So this platform will show you, again, it won't let you skip rankings. So we want to educate people into not skipping rankings. But if on your November ballot, you were to skip this ranking, what would happen with this 4th ranking for Krispy Kreme would be advanced up to your 3rd rank. And it would be as if you simply had your first, second, and third, and this is how it would get tabulated. So I want to show them visually what happens, show them why we don't let that happen in the platform because it's meant to be an educational tool, and then finally talk about what would happen if they did this on the November ballot. Once I cover those sort of three basic tabulation issues, then I'm going to make some sort of selection. It doesn't really matter what I pick here, as long as I pick. I will also use this to highlight I'm sort of, every time I give an RCV presentation, I want to say the best way that you can get through a ballot without making any mistakes is to make sure that you only have one oval filled in per column and per row. As long as you do that, like what I've done here, all of your votes will be counted as they should. So then we submit. If this presentation, I may stop here to show people that, if I'm at a tabling event, and they're on their phone, especially if they're on their phone, they're sort of on their own device, I would point out at this point that there's an additional link here to our website so that they can follow up on their own with more information. If they're doing this on their own afterwards, again, I would indicate, go to this QR code and check it out. When you're looking at the results, you'll also have a link to portland.gov/vote, which is our premier voter education site. So I want to direct them to that. This is going to be easy access for them to get to further information if they want to do that deeper dive. Then I'm going to look at the results. So when I go into here, this sort of automatically will start to scroll through the rounds. I sort of generally just let it go so people have a visual indicator. If you feel like that's distracting, you can always just click a single button and it'll stop scrolling through, so you can cover those when you get to them. But the things I want to cover here that are really important is I first want to say, it's a single winner. I want to identify what it is that we're doing here. I want to show them that we have a winner up top that's going to be identified, in this case, Makiko Mochi Donuts. But then I want to talk about how we got to that win. The next thing I'll draw their attention to is this is our voting threshold that we've talked about in that primer. So that 50% plus one vote is 49 of 97 votes. If you do the math on that, that comes out to 50% plus one additional vote. And then finally, this is the number of candidates that we had total in the election. Then I'll go down and I'll take a look here, and I may bring attention to this is our threshold as shown visually here. This is that 49 votes. It matches. This is what we've got to get to for someone to be elected. Now, as you can see here, nobody got to that majority in the first round. So we go to our next round, and that's done by eliminating Cocoa Donuts with the fewest votes. So we can advance to our next round. This is where, again, it's really helpful to have somebody else clicking through this as you're describing it. And we can see that those votes are eliminated and then reapportioned to a number of other people. We see everybody goes up. In round two, same thing as round one. Nobody got there. So now we'll eliminate Krispy Kreme and continue. This continues on until finally, in round 6, we have enough people eliminated for Makiko Mochi Donuts to get to that threshold. Now, I may also, oftentimes a place we'll get a question here is sometimes you'll get a vote when it has enough elections. You'll get a demonstration vote that will get somebody over the threshold when there's still 3 candidates left. Oftentimes when you have a sample that gets like this, where there's only 2 people left, you will get a question of like, well, what would have happened if neither of these people had been at that threshold? And in that case, anytime you get to there's only 2 people left, the person with the most votes wins. So we will always have a winner. There's never going to be an election we get through in ranked choice voting where nobody wins and we decide we gotta redo it. We'll always get to somebody that wins. I won't generally highlight that happens if we don't get to a majority. That opens up in sort of a smaller presentation. That opens up that world of a whole lot of questions about math and this and the election code and how it's written. So if they ask those questions, I'm always happy to dive into that. But there are a number of things like this that we talked about, that sort of bite snack meal. And this is getting the more snack where you really, you want to highlight what it's showing on the screen and not go less. So beyond with this tool, the last few things I'll cover is as somebody scrolls down. So you can either, tell them to scroll down if they're looking at on their phone, they can scroll down. This sort of explains sort of what is happening at each step, and then has a round by round analysis of where the votes went. They'll also have this, what I think is a really important link, and that's this export to RCViz. RCViz is sort of this open source software. Actually, I'm not sure if it's open source, but it's this additional software that will let you look at your results with additional graphics. So it gives you additional visualizations. So if I go to that here, we can see it takes a little bit for it to sort of process through. It doesn't like me doing this while I'm on Zoom, but all right. If you're not on Zoom, it goes through a lot faster. My internet connection, obviously not amazing. Oh, here we go. So this is, it defaults to the Sankey graphs, but there's a whole bunch of different ways to demonstrate this. There's bar charts that will walk through the rounds. There's a summary table that will walk through rounds. So different people, different types of visualizations is going to be useful to them. So I would encourage people to sort of click on that link and explore on their own. You don't need to kind of in a presentation. I wouldn't click on the link in a presentation like this, because you start getting into a level of detail that you probably don't need. It's just more complexity than you need. But I would show the link to people and encourage them to click on it and move forward. The last things that I will talk about, and then I'll give you some tips that from when I've done these presentations. I would do a presentation for single and multi-winner. I would use the exact same election always. The way I do it in a candidate learning session is I have somebody else running the actual election. So we'll go through this, I'll show them, and then I go back to give the primer on multi-winner. And while I'm doing that, they're going to go to the dashboard. They're going to go to the details for this donut demonstration. They're going to scroll down a little bit, and they're going to edit the winners to be 3 instead of 1. That is literally as how simple it is. So we just do that live during a presentation, and then the person presenting will go back, they'll get it prepared, and they'll have it ready for me when I get back to talk about multi-winner. I do this because I think it's important to highlight that the voter, this is the exact same thing that your voters already participated live in the event. It doesn't look any different. It's exactly the same. And that's something we want to really highlight between single winner and multi-winner is on the ballot, you're going to be seeing the same thing. You're going to be seeing a grid with your rankings and your candidates. You'll see the exact same thing. So doing it live lets them really see that. Then we can sort of click through. And then when we get to the results, obviously we start talking about the differences. I highlight, multiple winners. I highlight the threshold that it shows is a little bit different. I highlight all the things that are different between multi-winner and single winner sort of on the back end. But I also think it's important to highlight the places where there are not differences. Yeah, the only other things I'll cover before questions are the languages. That's really important. We have a ton of languages available. So when you're doing it as a presentation, I imagine you're typically going to do this in English. If you are proficient in another language and you're presenting to community, I encourage you to do it in that language. That's up to you. But typically you'll do it in English, but you do want to draw attention to a number of communities that they have a lot of options to look at this in other languages. And it'll change sort of these, the candidates are sort of set as this is what the name is. So names typically aren't going to change between languages. But if you were to show it in something like this, we can see sort of the instructions will change to Korean in this case. And I think that is a great part of this tool that makes it a little more accessible for everybody. Yeah, other than that, that's sort of how I would walk through it. And I'm happy to answer any questions that people have on the platform.
Thank you, James. Questions? Terry?
How many times have you given it so far sort of straight? And what I'm getting to is, how long does this take for a community association type of presentation?
So I've done it at tabling events live and walked through it, which is a different beast. And then we've done run-throughs for the candidate learning sessions. The candidate learning sessions will be the first time that it is embedded fully into a presentation. The platform really only became available to us this month for like external use. So it'll be the first time, Thursday actually will be the first time that it will be in a full presentation. But we've done a bunch of run-throughs to try and get it. It really depends. It depends on how deep you want to go and how comfortable you are. And if you don't have somebody else clicking through, that is a difficulty that we've identified. This is not a tool that you're going to want to use as part of a presentation if you were the only one there, because it just takes much longer to sort of go back and forth. But my RCV section I do RCV and districting and learning session. I have a 10-minute window and I'm coming in about that. And that's covering districting as well. So I would say I would probably am about 7 to 8 minutes on ranked choice voting. And that uses this platform. And then I have slides that give like, the key elements of, 50%, the thresholds and, things. And it shows an example of what the ballot, our sample ballot as it were right now. And I'm about 7 minutes on that portion of it. You could do it faster if you only wanted to do, just doing single winner is enough to give people sort of more than what they would have otherwise. So if you wanted to do a simple version of this, you could do it in 5 minutes or less by just doing single winner, not covering the differences. I would just say anytime you do a shorter version, always like emphasize, go to portland.gov/vote, try it out for yourself. There will be single and multi-winner available on the site. Please like take part and play with it and come back to us with further questions. But yeah, that's the timelines where we're at right now. It's pretty adjustable based on what you want to do. I don't think you could do less than 5 minutes because you do got to kind of go through the election. And that doesn't count the time required for them to like vote. I give the QR code and then I go over the other stuff. So it's probably like 2 or 3 minutes of them having a chance to vote. And then it's about 7 minutes of ranked choice voting.
That's pretty quick, but yeah, great. Thanks.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you, James. I look forward to testing it so I feel comfortable in making a presentation or moderating a presentation. Any further questions for James? Okay, well, James, thank you very much. Our next subject is feedback about recent activities. And so invite comments by anyone with regard to, I think, either presentations on on the transition, on the election that we've given to different communities. Also, feedback on the ranked choice voting workshop, which we had recently, and also the elections building tour. So how any feedback or observations that individuals have? Jose, please. Jose, I think you're on mute somehow.
Is this better?
Yes, that's better. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I know that people already heard me say this, that we're on the elections building tour, but the elections building tour was amazing. We should do things like that more. I learned a lot about the process, and it was interesting to see it just happening in person. So I do appreciate. I know we've done like social things in the past, but activities like that almost feel like both. Like we're learning and doing something GTAC related, but also felt social. So it was a great time.
Concur. Additional observations? I can make an, I concur with Jose. Oh, Terry, I'm sorry. Terry, you're on.
I was just going to concur with Jose. That was a really good tour, and I thought the answering of questions was great, and it was sort of an impressive facility, and it was impressive to see how secure and thoughtful the process was. I think, and as people had said, I think the more people who see it, the better people will feel about elections. So thanks to everybody who put that together, and elections folks' hospitality was awesome, and just having a field trip was kind of fun. Flip to something else just on the public feedback sort of thing. I'm getting, I don't know how to describe it. I think in the multi-winner districts, election and the multi-winner RCV, there's a misunderstanding of how it's going to work. People are losing track of the single transferable vote, and there's a feeling that they're getting to vote for 3 candidates or more than 3. But it's really a single vote, and I think what it's doing is it's underemphasizing the fact that that first ranking is really important, and the second ranking is slightly less important. The third ranking is even less important than that, kind of. So I just don't know how to say it other than, and I think there's a slight misunderstanding on how that works. But and I'm not sure if that's educatable or resolvable or something. But I'm hearing it from the layperson voters and candidates themselves. I think there's some misunderstandings. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Additional observations. I will comment on the ranked choice voting workshop. I found that informative, and if one was unable to attend it when it happened, a recording is helpful. Of course, we've all studied or looked at the the PowerPoint slides for ranked choice voting. But again, that workshop is very helpful, and I can envision that we might have we could have another one, or just brainstorming. Maybe we could even do a ranked choice voting workshop open it to a broader audience, analogous to giving it to communities. That's something we can discuss at a future meeting or meetings. Well, with that feedback, we will go to upcoming meetings, I think.
I want to pause really quick, Bill. Jose, did you have
Please.
your hand up? Because I think there's some things going on with the
Oh,
internet
I'm
bandwidth.
sorry, Jose. I missed your hand. I apologize. It's right on top of some of your books. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment about what Terry said, because I think it's really important what he said about people thinking they can vote for a lot more than one person. I've actually had that come up too, and it also made me think about past instances where I didn't realize they thought that. So where, because we know how it works, sometimes you don't catch what they mean because you automatically filter it. So we have to be very careful about listening so that people don't think that. Terry is 100% correct. We should definitely not only teach out what that is, but we need to teach us what to listen for, because sometimes it's little comments that you don't catch at first. Because I've realized after the fact, like, oh, they meant this. So it's very important to keep that in front of our mind. So I just wanted to just bring that up.
Very good point. Thank you, Jose and Terry. Looking carefully, I do not see other raised hands. So let us go to the next slide, and in chat, some of us have experienced some freezing in our video or even in audio. We'll try to be flexible so we can be sure that we're all following. Here are our upcoming meetings. We're another subcommittee for districts and council operations. That meeting will be on May 29. with regard to onboarding. And our next full GTAC meeting is June 11. And then our voter education and outreach subcommittee, I think we have a poll out for that, but it'll be during the week of June 24. And so we will, of course, inform everyone of that time. So that covers our upcoming meetings, and we'll go to the next slide where I can adjourn, but I will hold off to see if there are any raised hands or waving. But it's been a pleasure to communicate, that sounds so formal, pardon me. It's been a pleasure that we've all been able to get together. And we can't share meals via Zoom, but just the same, conversation is good. So everyone, have a good day and a good week. And until our